What is up, guys? UFC 272 coming up this weekend. I am super excited for this one. Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal, and a pretty decked out card after that. Obviously, this is the one we've all been waiting for. The trash talk, the friends turn enemies, the narrative being spun non-stop. Who's wrong, who's right, nobody really knows. But what we do get to see is who is the better fighter on Sunday morning. Obviously, this has been the UFC's kind of dream sort of build-up, with the two guys going back and forth at each other. It's been going on for quite some time, and finally that's going to get settled. A lot of emotions, a lot has been said, a lot has been done with regards to each other. Obviously, teammates at ATT, Colby eventually being kicked out of the gym, well, both being kicked out of the gym. Jorge eventually allowed back, and Colby's gone on to find another fight team. But besides all the antics, this is obviously stylistically a massive matchup. And in terms of the landscape of what happens with these two guys from here, it's a super important fight. The first thing I want to talk about, I think, in terms of the landscape and where to from here, I would feel like Colby's still more motivated in terms of getting that title and perhaps getting another shot at Kamaru Usman. He's been the only guy recently that's been able to really drag Kamaru Usman out. Obviously, we can still talk about Leon Edwards in that picture and that kind of stuff, but I think Colby's still motivated by that title shot, whereas I think Jorge is kind of, I don't want to say maybe at the end of his career, but he's got a lot going on. You know, he's got fight promotions and he's got brands and the tequila, and you can kind of see that the outside influence is starting to take over. I mean, he's 37, been fighting a long time, so perhaps other things, his motivations are starting to change, if you put it that way, whereas Colby's still a bit, or like heavily driven with the title, which puts two guys mentally in different places. Obviously, the animosity between the two ramps it up, that their egos really want to beat each other. But that being said, that's not going to win them the fight, and I think that's probably going to, whoever doesn't control those emotions is going to be the one who loses in the end. But I think both guys will be pretty well adjusted to keeping those under control. When we look at the fight stylistically, we know what Jorge does, we know what Colby does. Colby, we're looking at pace, we're looking at output, and he's really going to put it on you. When you look at Jorge, especially recently, it's a lot of power straight off the bat, in your face, come forward, not going to take a step back, and he's going to try and knock you out. The intricacies for me, where that starts to get interesting, we've seen Jorge very kick heavy, and that obviously allows access to takedowns, whereas Colby is going to be very much boxing heavy, but that's purely just to mask a takedown or to close distance, get in to try and find a takedown. Not even a takedown, but just to engage in wrestling, look for a body lock, look for a high crotch. He's not even really too stressed about maintaining that. He's also not even too stressed about the accuracy of his shots. It's all volume, and it's just cardio and pace and relentless, and it just doesn't stop. We've seen him take a fair bit of punishment quite comfortably. Obviously, the Kamaru Usman fight comes to mind. The first one eventually got stopped. His jaw was broken, but he had taken a lot of punishment. He's tough, he's got heart, and he's got a lot of cardio. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it. That being said, again, these are two guys that know each other really well. Not only on a personal level, but guys that would have trained together a lot. Guys that would have given each other tips and would have taught each other stuff. Nuances within striking and nuances within grappling that maybe specifically they do, and things that they would specifically do in situations. So the intricacies of how well they know each other personally and technically is vast. And that's what makes it so exciting. Again, I think I spoke about this in the EFC clip. There is always evolvement. Both guys would have evolved long past a certain point. So yes, they know each other, but there are things that would have changed to some degree. But again, it will only be incremental. They would have only advanced so far, especially someone like Jorge, who's so far into his career, has had so many fights. How much time he's spending on learning new things, I guess we're going to see. But he is dangerous, and as is Colby. They go about their business in different ways, and their fights, the way they approach a fight in different ways very different. I expect to see pace from the get-go, and I think that's the way it's going to be from start to finish. It's going to be all-out pace, it's going to be in your face, and whoever's still standing wins kind of thing. Like I said, and we're going to see in the stats, obviously Colby, he's not too stressed about accuracy, he's not too stressed about really completing much, to be honest. His whole thing is to be in your face non-stop. Punches, kicks, grappling, takedowns, and whatever presents itself. That's his style. He doesn't get tired. I've never seen him get tired, and that pace is very overwhelming. Jorge, again, it'll be interesting to see how he adopts those kicks. Will he be more straight up? Will his stance be wider? Will he throw kicks with a little bit more caution? Will he try and hide those kicks a bit more? Also, that being said, Jorge is no slouch when it comes to wrestling. He's just maybe not on that NCAA kind of level or background as Colby is. But it's a massively exciting matchup, not only stylistically, and I know people get caught up in the Colby stuff, but if you do not appreciate or not a fan of how he fights, I think you've got to push all of the bullshit aside, because he is awesome to watch, and as is Masvidal. Obviously, these are two of the biggest names in the sport. It doesn't get much bigger than this in terms of pay-per-view headliners. It's not often you see a pay-per-view headliner 5 rounds for no title, so that speaks to the magnitude of this fight. I mean, Masvidal's slowly becoming the pay-per-view king, so it's exciting. The build-up's been exciting. If you've been watching the countdowns and stuff, I love it, man. I'm so knee deep in all the build-up and how it's all unfolding, and Colby's been pretty funny because it's obvious. The stig is very obvious. Like calling Masvidal, saying what he says is fake, and it's been pretty hilarious. But I'm excited. Let's take a look at some of the numbers that I've picked out, and we'll see if what I'm saying makes any sense. So first, you're obviously looking at Colby, 4 KOs, 4 subs, 50% finish rate, which is obviously not what he does. He does pace and a lot of it. Okay, then obviously 4.14, that is the volume per minute. That's significant strikes per minute, and that's a pretty high rate. Again, conversion to accuracy at 38% accuracy on the feet. That's exactly what I'm talking about. High output. He's not too stressed about the accuracy. It just keeps coming. He's not really worried about where it lands. It just helps him set up things and close distance. Striking defense, I thought would be quite important, 50%, which is pretty good. And then the big one, takedowns per 15 minutes, 4.10. That is a lot of takedowns in a fight, and that's what he does, man. A lot of volume, try and shut you out, close the distance, put you on the back foot, engage in the grappling, and see what comes up from there. Either he's going to ground you out for 25 minutes, or he'll find a stoppage somewhere along the line. I don't think he kind of carries the one punch power or like the big knockout power to stop Masvidal, but he definitely, I would feel that he definitely has a cardio advantage. So that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Masvidal, interesting enough, 16 KOs but only a 48% finish rate. He's got a pile of fights on his record, which we'll see in the tail of the tape. 16 KOs, he definitely knows how to stop fights. 4.2, his output is really, really high, and this is the difference here of the 48% striking accuracy. Masvidal is trying to knock you out with volume. He's throwing heavy volume, and he's throwing with a lot of power. That's his game. Striking defense, 65%, I thought was pretty important to see how he handles the volume, dealing with a lot of punches coming back at you, how good his defense is. And then the takedown defense, which is obviously going to be tested at 75%. So I think those stats, there's no real surprises or real shockers there. Looking at the tail of the tape, Colby obviously 16-3. Look at Masvidal, the 50 professional fights. This will be his 51st professional fight at the age of 37. Never mind the backyard street fighting. I don't think that counts on that record as well. So this is a guy who knows how to fight. Pretty evenly matched in height, pretty evenly matched in reach. 2-inch advantage for Masvidal, which I don't think is any surprise, and I think he'll use every inch he can to try and keep Colby at distance as much as possible. Okay, your broadcast times, as always, this is the most common question and everyone wants to know. 1 a.m. early prelims on UFC Fight Pass, 3 a.m. prelims on UFC Fight Pass and Supersport. Guys, please, if it's not on 210, it's normally on 218 or 208, sorry. Just keep an eye out. I know people panic. They're like, oh, it's the UFC. The UFC is on Supersport. Every single card is on Supersport. It does not change. If it's not on 210, it's on 208, so don't panic. And then the main card, 5 a.m. start, which is not bad for me personally. Okay, then my picks. This is where it's going to get a bit interesting. Obviously, there was a late change with Renato Moicano stepping in for Rafael Fiziev, who unfortunately tested positive for COVID. Okay, so let's go through it. Spivak versus Greg Hardy. I think Spivak is just going to have too much. He is a mammoth of a man. I think he's going to stop that TKO, and I would guess probably somewhere like a ground and pound. I would go as far as to say as a half guard ground and pound. Kevin Holland's got a tough one in front of him. I just feel if the jiu-jitsu of Jacare couldn't cause Holland too many problems, I think it's fair enough to assume that his jiu-jitsu is good enough to get him past a certain point or certain opponents. Obviously moving back down to welterweight, which I would say is probably the right move for him. Still got a tough task, but I'm gonna back loudmouth and I'm gonna say that he's gonna get it done via TKO. Bryce Mitchell versus Edson Barboza, a super intriguing matchup. Bryce Mitchell just on a tear at the moment. Obviously Barboza finding a new home at featherweight. Two very different guys, classic striker versus grappler, I would say. Edson Barboza is a handful for anybody to deal with, and Bryce Mitchell, he's so unassuming. Obviously he's this kid from Arkansas that nobody saw coming and just keeps finding a way to win, pulling off twisters and all kinds of strange submissions, and super confident in himself, and I think that's a big factor here. We've seen Edson how the confidence dwindles when he's under pressure. He's never really out of a fight, but the confidence definitely does fade if the fight isn't going his way. And I think we've kind of, the key to beating Edson is keeping him under pressure and keeping him on the back foot, which I think Mitchell will do quite comfortably. I think he'll find a way to walk Edson down, get him onto the fence and get him to the ground, and that's the way I see it. That being said, this is a bold pick. I'll be honest with you, it's a super bold pick. I think on paper, Edson Barboza is probably the favorite and should realistically win that fight, but I think Bryce Mitchell is going to pull this one off. Renato Moicano versus RDA. I think Moicano is just also on an absolute tear. He's got so many ways to win this fight, and I feel like RDA might be at the back end of his career, and Renato Moicano is like just hitting his stride now. So I'm excited to see how this one pans out. I think Moicano wins this by submission. Just the way I see it, I think it's going to be frantic for the first few minutes, and I think Moicano will settle into the fight and either put RDA down with a shot or find a takedown and find a submission. Colby versus Jorge. Honestly speaking, I've spoken a bit about how I feel this fight's going to pan out. I think the pressure, I think the cardio, and I think the grappling is going to be the deciding factor there. I think Colby is just, his fight style is problematic for a guy like Jorge. That being said, they obviously know each other, but I think Colby will get that done. I think the grappling and the pace is going to be a big decider there. I think he's really going to bring it on. He's really going to put it on Jorge and drag him into a deep water and see how he survives. Maybe I just don't see him stopping Jorge. That's the only thing I don't see, but I do see him winning that fight by decision. That's probably the most realistic outcome for me. I think the best chance for Jorge will be in the early rounds, round 1, round 2, big KO, either with like a knee, a head kick, or like a big punch combo, which is obviously it's a high probability. Jorge can find those openings, and we've seen in the past that Colby definitely can get hit. Whether he can absorb and deal with that from Jorge, we're going to find out. But yeah, massively exciting matchup, massively exciting card. Don't sleep on the prelims. There's some great fights down there. It's going to be a long weekend of fights. Enjoy the fights, my friends. Thank you for tuning in. Anything you want to add, drop down below. Send me your picks as well. I'm always intrigued to see how everybody's calling the fights. As always, this is just my opinion, the way I see things. And thank you for tuning in. We'll chat to you soon. Peace.